My name is Alex, and this is the story of the day my family signed their own downfall and I signed my freedom into existence. It was a Tuesday. I remember because the garbage trucks were making their rounds, a sound I've always associated with endings and clean slates. I was in my room, which was really just the converted attic space, the one with the slanted ceiling that I constantly bumped my head on if I stood up too fast. It was my space, though. I'd painted the walls a soft sky blue, hung up my own art, my own dreams. It was the one place in that house that felt like mine. Downstairs, the air was thick with a fake, sugary perfume. My older sister, Chloe, was home. Chloe wasn't just coming home for a visit. No, that would be too simple. She was coming home for what my mom called family support. You see, Chloe's life, the golden child's life, had hit a snag. Her picture-perfect corporate job had downsized, and her picture-perfect fiancé had decided he wasn't ready for picture-perfect. So she was back, tail between her legs, needing the one thing she'd always taken for granted, our family's undivided attention and resources. I was in the kitchen making a simple sandwich, trying to be invisible. My mom was fluttering around Chloe, stroking her hair, telling her everything was going to be okay. My dad was silent in his armchair, buried behind a newspaper as usual. The dynamic was set in stone. Chloe was the star, the prodigy, the one who made them proud. I was the background noise, the quiet and artistic one, which in that house was a synonym for unfocused and a disappointment. I felt the tension before I even heard the words. My mom turned to me, her smile fading into that familiar line of disappointment. "Alex, honey, we need to talk." My stomach dropped. That sentence was never the prelude to anything good. "We've been thinking," she began, her voice dripping with a false sense of reason. "With Chloe home now, and things being so difficult for her, we need to reevaluate the space situation." I just stood there, the mayonnaise knife feeling heavy in my hand. "Reevaluate the space situation?" I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. "Your room," my dad said, not even lowering his newspaper. "It's the only one with its own entrance. Chloe needs her privacy while she gets back on her feet. She's been through a lot." Chloe looked at me, and for a split second, I saw it. Not apology, not guilt. It was a flicker of triumph. She had lost her job, her man, her city life, but she could still come home and take my space. It was a power move, a reminder of her permanent place at the top of the family food chain. "And where am I supposed to go?" I asked, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to keep it steady. My mom waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, you can sleep on the pull-out couch in the living room. It'll be fine. It's just for a little while. We all need to make sacrifices for family." Sacrifices. That word echoed in my head. My entire life had been a sacrifice to Chloe's glory. I sacrificed my high school graduation party because Chloe had a college awards ceremony. I sacrificed a scholarship to a state school because the money had to go to Chloe O.S. Moore, prestigious, private university. I sacrificed my dreams, my time, my need for a sliver of approval, all on the altar of Chloe. And now, they were asking me to sacrifice the last square foot of territory I could call my own. I looked at my dad. Nothing. The newspaper didn't move. I looked at my mom. Her eyes were hard, resolute. This wasn't a discussion. This was a verdict. Something inside me, something that had been bending for 22 years, finally snapped. It wasn't a loud, dramatic break. It was a quiet, terrifying click, a finality. "No," I said. The word hung in the air, simple and absolute. My mom blinked. "Excuse me?" I said no, I repeated, my voice stronger now. "I'm not giving her my room. I'm not sleeping on the couch. This is my home, too." Chloe let out a dramatic sigh. "See, Mom, this is what I have to deal with. She's always been so selfish." "Selfish?" I laughed, a dry, hollow sound. "I've spent my life living in your shadow, picking up your pieces, being told my feelings were less important than your achievements. You don't need my room, Chloe. You need a reminder that the world doesn't revolve around you, but it seems like Mom and Dad are never going to give you that. That's when my mom lost it. Her face turned a mottled red. How dare you? After everything we've done for you. We clothed you, we fed you, we put a roof over your head. And this is the thanks we get? Your sister is in crisis and you can't even show an ounce of compassion. Compassion? I shot back, tears now stinging my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. You wouldn't know compassion if it hit you in the face. This has never been about compassion. It's always been about her. My mom took a step forward, her finger pointing toward the door. If that's how you feel, then you can get out. If you're not willing to be a part of this family, if you're not willing to support your sister in her time of need, then you are no daughter of mine. Get out. Now. Time stopped. The world narrowed to the fury in my mother's eyes, the smug satisfaction on Chloe's face, and the rustle of my father's newspaper as he deliberately turned the page. He wasn't even watching. He was sanctioning this with his silence. I looked at each of them. My mother, the executioner. My father, the silent judge. My sister, the gleeful witness. And in that moment, I saw them for what they were. Not a family. A system. A broken, toxic system that fed on my insecurity to fuel their own sense of superiority. Okay, I said, my voice eerily calm. Okay. I turned and walked out of the kitchen. I didn't run. I didn't slam anything. I walked up to my attic room, my sanctuary. I went to my closet and pulled out my old worn-out hiking backpack. I didn't pack sentiment. I didn't pack photo albums or childhood stuffed animals. I packed with a cold, clinical efficiency, my laptop, my external hard drive, which contained my entire digital portfolio, my tablet and stylus, 3 changes of practical clothes, my toothbrush, the small lockbox where I kept my passport, my birth certificate, and the $1,147 I had secretly been saving from my freelance graphic design gigs for over 2 years. My escape fund, as I'd privately called it, never truly believing I'd have the courage to use it. I looked around the blue room one last time. Then I zipped up the backpack, slung it over my shoulders, and walked back down the stairs. They were still in the kitchen. My mom had her arms crossed, a triumphant look on her face, probably expecting me to come back down crying, begging for forgiveness. I walked straight past them to the front door. "Alex, where do you think you're going?" my mom demanded, her confidence faltering for just a second. I stopped, my hand on the doorknob. I didn't turn around. "You told me to get out," I said, my voice flat. "I'm getting out. But just so you know, the moment I walk through this door, you lose all power over me. You don't get to call me. You don't get to ask me for anything. Ever again." I could feel their shock. This wasn't part of the script. I was supposed to fold. I was supposed to break. I was supposed to apologize and take my place on the pull-out couch. Before any of them could form a response, I opened the door and stepped out into the afternoon sun. I closed it behind me with a soft, definitive click. And I started walking. I walked for 6 blocks before the adrenaline wore off and the reality of my situation crashed down on me. I was homeless. I had less than $2,000 to my name. I had no car. I had nowhere to go. Panic started to claw at my throat. I sat down on a bus stop bench, my hands shaking. What had I done? Maybe I should go back. Swallow my pride. Sleep on the couch. It would be easier. But then I saw my mother's face. I heard Chloe's sigh. I saw my father's newspaper. And I knew, with every fiber of my being, that I could never go back. Going back would be a fate worse than homelessness. It would be a slow, soul-crushing death of my spirit. So I made a decision. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning. They had thrown me out, thinking I would fail, thinking I would come crawling back, proving them right, that I was nothing without them. My revenge would not be to hurt them. I found a women's shelter downtown that had a bed available for 2 weeks. It was humbling, terrifying, but it was a roof. It was safe. The next morning, I woke up on a thin mattress in a room with 7 other women. I looked at my reflection in the small shared bathroom mirror. My eyes were puffy, but there was a new fire in them. A resolve. I spent every day in the public library. I treated finding a job and a home like it was my full-time occupation. I updated my portfolio website. I scoured every freelance job board. I applied for anything and everything. Logo design, social media graphics, website layouts. I reached out to every contact I'd ever made. For the first few days, nothing. The fear was a constant companion. But then, a small break. A local startup needed a last-minute logo redesign. The pay was low, but it was something. I poured my soul into that project. I worked on it for 16 hours straight in the library, fueled by cheap coffee and pure, unadulterated spite. I sent it over. The client loved it. He paid me immediately and left a glowing review on my freelance profile. That one review led to another, slightly bigger job. Then another. After a week at the shelter, I had made enough to put a deposit on a room in a shared apartment I found on Craigslist. It was tiny, and my roommates were a little eccentric, but it was mine. I didn't have to ask permission. I didn't have to be grateful for someone's charity. It was my space. I remember the first night in that room, sitting on a second-hand mattress on the floor, eating takeout. It was the most triumphant meal of my life. My work started to gain traction. I wasn't just doing logos anymore. I was building entire brand identities. My style, clean, emotional, and narrative-driven, was resonating with people. I started getting referrals. I realized that my pain, my story, was fueling my art. The emotions I had suppressed for years were now pouring onto the digital canvas. I was creating work that felt authentic, that told a story, and people were responding to that authenticity. 3 months after being thrown out, I landed my first major client. A mid-sized tech company needed a complete rebrand. The budget was more money than I had ever seen in my life. It was a terrifying amount of responsibility. I worked on that project like a woman possessed. I worked late into the night. I obsessed over every kerning, every color hex code, every subtle animation. This was my shot. This was the moment I could either fly or fall. The day I presented the final package to the client, I was a nervous wreck. But when I finished the video call, there was silence on their end for a moment. Then the project lead smiled. "Alex," he said, "this is phenomenal. It's perfect." The payment hit my bank account, and for the first time I had real financial security. I paid my rent 6 months in advance. I bought a proper desk and a high-end monitor. I was building a real business, not just scraping by. But the true turning point, the moment the fear truly shifted from me to them, happened about 6 months after I left. I had started a personal project, an online web comic. It was a fictionalized, slightly dramatized story about a young artist navigating a toxic family system and finding her power. I called it The Attic Dweller. I poured my heart into it. The favoritism, the silent treatments, the feeling of being an outsider in your own home, and the triumphant journey of self-discovery. I posted it on a few webcomic platforms and shared it on my professional social media, not thinking much of it. It was just therapy for me. It went viral. Not like celebrity viral, but in the niche world of web comics and graphic novels, it exploded. The comments were flooded with people sharing their own stories. "This is my life. I feel so seen. Your art saved me today." I had tapped into a universal nerve. My follower count skyrocketed. My freelance business inquiries tripled. I was invited to speak on a podcast about art and mental health. I was even approached by a small indie publisher about turning The Attic Dweller into a physical graphic novel. This was my success. It was born from my pain, nurtured by my hard work, and built with my own 2 hands. There was no family name to open doors, no nepotism, just me. And then, one day, I got an email. The subject line made my blood run cold. It was from my father. My father, who hadn't said more than 2 words to me in years, had written me an email. My hand hovered over the mouse. A part of me wanted to delete it, unread, to continue my life of blissful silence from them. But curiosity, that vicious beast, won out. I opened it. "Alexandra," it began. Formal, as always. "I hope this email finds you well. Your mother and I have come across your online comic. We are not sure what to make of it. While we are glad to see you are supporting yourself, we are deeply concerned and hurt by the portrayal of our family. It seems you have chosen to air our private grievances in a public forum for money and attention." I let out a bitter laugh. Of course, they weren't reaching out because they missed me. They were reaching out because their reputation was on the line. The email continued. "Chloe has been having a very difficult time. She has not been able to find stable work, and the stress of the situation has taken a toll on her and on our family dynamic. Your mother is not well." Ah, there it was. The guilt, the manipulation. My mother was not well. I wondered if it was true, or just another tool in their arsenal. The final paragraph was the kicker. "We feel it is time to put this unpleasantness behind us. We are your family. We would like to invite you to dinner this Sunday to discuss how we can move forward. We expect you to take down the defamatory content about us as a gesture of goodwill." I read it 3 times. The audacity was breathtaking. There was no apology. No, "We were wrong." No, "We miss you." It was a summons, a demand for my compliance, wrapped in the thin veil of familial obligation. The "we're" scared. They were finally, truly scared. Not for my well-being, but for their own. They saw my success, my voice, my platform, and they realized they no longer controlled the narrative. I had the power now. My story was out there, and people were listening to me, not to them. The quiet, disappointing daughter was now a roaring success, and her success was built on the foundation of their failure as parents. That had to be a terrifying pill for them to swallow. This was the moment I had been working toward without even knowing it. This was the fear taking over. Not my fear of being on the streets, their fear of my voice. I didn't reply right away. I let it sit for 2 days. I thought about what I wanted. Did I want a reconciliation? No. The trust was too broken. The wounds were too deep. Did I want to hurt them? No. Their own actions had already set in motion a chain of consequences that was hurting them far more than any petty revenge I could concoct. What I wanted was my freedom, and I already had it. On the 3rd day, I wrote my reply. It was the most powerful thing I have ever written. "Dad," I began, refusing to use the formal "father. "Thank you for your email. I'm sorry to hear that Chloe is still struggling and that Mom is unwell. I hope they both find the peace and support they need. Regarding my work, The Attic Dweller is a work of fiction inspired by my personal experiences. It is a story that has resonated with thousands of people, and it has been the cornerstone of my financial and creative independence. I will not be taking it down. You mentioned putting unpleasantness behind us. What you call unpleasantness, I call systemic emotional neglect and psychological abuse. I will not be coming to dinner on Sunday or any other day. The family you are referring to ceased to exist for me the moment Mom told me to get out and you sat there in silence. I have moved forward. I have built a life for myself. A good life, a happy life, a successful life, on my own terms. I have a home that respects me, a career that fulfills me, and a community that supports me. I bear you no ill will. In a strange way, I am grateful. You forcing me out was the greatest gift you ever gave me. It was the push I needed to finally live my own life. Please do not contact me again unless it is with a sincere, unqualified apology and a demonstrated effort to understand the pain you have caused. I doubt that will happen, and I have made my peace with that. I wish you all the best. Alex. I hit send, and I felt light. As if a weight I'd been carrying since childhood had finally dissolved. There was no rage, no sadness, just peace and power. That was 2 years ago. I never heard from them again. My business continued to grow. The Attic Dweller was published and became a minor bestseller. I now run a small, successful design studio. I have a beautiful apartment that I own, with a room dedicated just to my art, with windows that look out over a city I love. I have friends who are my chosen family. I am happy, genuinely, profoundly happy. This is the revenge that matters. Revenge is not about scheming or hurting those who hurt you. That kind of revenge keeps you tied to them, forever dancing to their toxic tune. The most powerful revenge is a quiet one. It is the revenge of peace. It is the revenge of success. It is the revenge of waking up every morning, looking in the mirror and loving the person you see, knowing that you built her from the ground up with your own resilience, your own talent, and your own unbreakable will. They threw me out thinking they were condemning me to failure. They thought fear would drive me back to them. But the moment I left, real fear took over. Theirs. They feared the world they had thrown me into. I embraced it. They feared my voice. I found it. They feared I was nothing without them. I discovered I was everything I was ever meant to be the moment I decided to walk alone. So, if you're watching this, and you're in a situation that feels hopeless, where you're being told you're not enough, where you're being asked to shrink yourself to make others feel big, hear me. Your power is not in fighting them on their terms. Your power is in walking away. Your power is in taking that pain, that anger, that feeling of being utterly dismissed, and you channel it. You use it as the rocket fuel to build a life so beautiful, so uniquely yours, that the people who doubted you become nothing more than a footnote in your incredible story. Build your life. Find your voice. Embrace the struggle, because on the other side of that struggle is a strength you cannot even imagine. They wanted to break me. Instead, they forged me in fire, and I emerged not burned but tempered, stronger, shinier, unbreakable. And that, my friends, is the greatest revenge of all. Thank you for watching Crossing Realities. If this story resonated with you, share your own strength in the comments below. Remember, your reality is what you choose to cross into. Choose courage. Choose yourself.